Welcome to the Art of Living Free series with Anthony Silard.
We would love your support to keep these valuable videos and podcasts free for everyone. To make a donation, please visit theartoflivingfree.org. 100% of all proceeds go to nonprofit education programs.
This week, Dr. Silard explores how we will emerge from the pandemic.
Hi, I'm Anthony Silard, and welcome to the Art of Living Free. Today, we're going to talk about how will we emerge from this pandemic. Guess what? It depends on how we process the pandemic. Okay, so while it's true that no two pandemics are alike, I guess most of us wouldn't really know that because this is the one pandemic of most of our lifetimes, right? Anyway, let's go with this, right? So while it's true that no two pandemics are alike, it's also true that no two emotional responses to a pandemic are alike. And the way you respond emotionally to this pandemic will be a huge, tremendous influencer of your present and future mental and emotional health. All right, so let's take a look at that. There are two primary forms of emotion regulation. So when we're experiencing something challenging in our lives, there's two ways that we can emotionally respond. One is called suppression. So suppression is actually a misnomer. It's incorrectly named because it's impossible to suppress the emotions we feel. Okay, we can't suppress our feelings. What suppression means, though, is you suppress how you display the emotions you feel. So we suppress our display of emotions. Okay, suppression as an emotional response when we're feeling something uncomfortable, such as how we relate to a pandemic, it's not a great idea. Numerous studies have found that when you suppress emotions, it leads to stress, burnout, isolation from ourselves, isolation from others. Basically, even our ability to memorize and remember things goes down because we're concentrating, I better suppress this emotion of sadness or anger. And so we're basically being artificial. And that effort to suppress how we display our emotion makes it harder to cognitively engage with other things. The other form of emotion regulation is much, much healthier. It's called reappraisal, or cognitive reappraisal. Reappraisal means to reframe your thoughts in response to a challenging situation. Okay? So this pandemic has been a period of collective trauma for many of us. And many of us, it's been the most distressing period of our lives. It's been a huge challenge. Many of us have seen people we love pass away. We've seen not just the physical suffering, we've seen the emotional and psychological suffering. I just was speaking with one of my clients the other day, and she shared about how painful it was to watch her children learning online and experiencing all these mental health issues, depression, and so forth. And then she got them into a private school a few months ago where they could go in person, and just saw that vanish and just saw them happy again. So so many of us have experienced this kind of trauma. Personal trauma is any life-threatening situation. And of course, the pandemic has been one. So what can we hope for after trauma? Well, I think the best we can hope for is what two University of North Carolina psychologists, Richard Tedeschi and Lawrence Calhoun, 25 years ago, they created a construct or concept which is called post-traumatic growth, which means that you can actually achieve positive life changes from a traumatic or life-threatening event. So Tedeschi and Calhoun have come up with a lot of interesting ideas and findings around post-traumatic growth. One of them is that some people might think that, well, to grow from trauma means you don't allow yourself to experience it too much. You suppress the trauma. That's not what they found. They found that the people who grow the most from trauma are also the people who experience the distress. They allow themselves to experience it, and then they reframe their thoughts to transform those feelings of suffering into growth. So here's the real question then about how you will emerge from the pandemic emotionally, psychologically, socially. Will you confront the challenging emotions you've been experiencing during this pandemic, or will you run from them? That's the key question. So confronting these challenging emotions like loneliness, depression, anxiety, trauma, it's not easy to do, right? It's easier in the short term to run and get into other things. Okay, but we'll get to that in a moment. That can have very negative consequences in our lives. So how can we confront these emotions so we can reappraise them? We can reframe the thoughts that lead to them and experience different emotions. How can we do that? Well, one of the best strategies that I've ever come across, I read about 15 years ago in a book by Susan Piver, which is called The Wisdom of a Broken Heart. If you're wondering, yes, my heart was broken, right? It was a very traumatic challenge. I guess not traumatic in the sense of a pandemic, but for me it felt traumatic at the time, breakup in my life. So what Piver recommends is to invite your emotions over for dinner. What do you mean, invite my emotions over for dinner? What is that? Okay, literally invite your challenging emotions to come and sit one by one and have dinner with you. And to do that, the first part of it, which is which is challenging in and of itself, is you got to name the emotions. So I don't know if you ever saw the movie The Exorcist. So in ancient mythology, what exorcists used to do when a patient or client was possessed by a demon, the first thing they would do, you want to guess? I'm pausing here so you can guess. Okay, the first thing they would do is to get their client to name the demon. By naming it, they reduced the power that it held over them. So some of our worst adversaries in life are the ones we never see. This strategy is to help you to name them, to identify what's been plaguing you, what's been ailing you, what's been bothering you. So invite them to come to dinner and let them sit one by one and ask each emotion. So anxiety, tell me, why are you here? What did you come here to teach me? Right? And then from that, and then depression. Also, why are you here? Tell me why you showed up. Why are you present? And what can I learn from you? You see, research by Richard Lazarus, the Berkeley psychologist, and also Nico Friese at the Dutch researcher, they found that we only feel emotions based on what we value. So if you only are going to experience an emotion, including loneliness or depression or anxiety, if something is important to you. So ask these emotions, what is it that's important to me? What is it that I value that you are here to help me to understand? It may be that loneliness is here. In fact, a study by Allison Gabriel at University of Arizona found that the difference between whether loneliness leads to negative outcomes in your life or positive outcomes is whether you can identify it with confidence as an impetus to improve your relationships. That's the cognitive reappraisal. So loneliness, for example, I guess, why are you here? Okay, you're here, this is maybe my example, I'm lonely sometimes. You're here to tell me that I really value social relationships. And I'm not experiencing the type of meaningful, robust social relationships I need in my life by spending all my time on my phone or on my laptop. I need to go and talk with people on the phone and in person. I need to build more relationships. I need to refine my communication skills so I'm more equipped to develop the type of relationships that I need to survive and thrive in my life. The same thing with all of your emotions. Ask them why they showed up and learn from them. That's the cognitive reappraisal. So while academics have very well found and come up with that emotions signal what's important to us, what has come more from spiritual practices, such as Susan Piver's, and also Pema Chodron, the Buddhist nun, what's come from these spiritual practitioners is that emotions also show up because there's something we need to learn from them. So let me share a quote from Pema Chodron's book, When Things Fall Apart, Hard Advice for Difficult Times. Nothing ever goes away until it has taught us what we need to know. It just keeps returning with new names, forms, manifestations, until we learn whatever it has to teach us about where we are separating ourselves from reality, how we are pulling back instead of opening up, closing down instead of allowing ourselves to experience fully whatever we encounter, including the pandemic. So why is that so important? Why are confronting these emotions so important? Here's why. Addiction. Because the definition of addiction is to repeat a behavior even though it leads to dysfunction in your life. Why would anyone do that? Hey, why am I going to repeat some kind of addictive behavior that causes me to not function well, whether it's alcohol or drugs or watching porn or just being on my phone all the time and not connecting with people in person, or whatever it is. Why, or gaming, why would I do that? Because it enables me to avoid and run from an emotion that I don't want to confront. I don't want to confront it, and I don't want to learn from it, because that seems too onerous. So that's how we become addicted. So, sidebar to Star Wars. You know, just as Luke Skywalker had to confront his fears and embark on his journey to become a Jedi, rather than staying home in Tatooine, we each have that choice. Are we going to go on a personal journey? The most challenging journey is always the internal one. Are we going to go on that journey and really confront and understand our emotions? Or are we going to hide from them and then get caught up in all of these addictions that then our lives never seem to go in the direction we want them to? Because addictions will never take you in the direction you desire in the long term. So this is our Shakespearean question here. To be or not to be? To be, really, to realize the best version of ourselves, or not to be, to get caught up in addiction and avoid. Remember, our emotions are just part of who we are. We only feel them because we value something. So if we avoid our emotions, we avoid our own values. We avoid what we care about. We avoid what's important to us. So this is going to be the question now during the pandemic. Are you going to confront who you are or run from who internally you deeply and at your most profound level are? So this pandemic, are you going to allow it to be this victimizer that causes you to run from yourself and what you genuinely feel? Or are you going to reframe it as cognitively reappraise it, reframe it as a giant reset button to change your life in the direction you want to change it in and to be the person that you want to become?
Life offers us many challenges, and theartoflivingfree.org offers new ways of thinking so we can see these challenges from a new angle and overcome them. Whether it's Anthony Silard's free blog, video or podcast series, his book, Screened in: The Art of Living Free in the Digital Age, or personalized courses, theartoflivingfree.org will help you refine your life vision and then transform it into action. Find out more at theartoflivingfree.org.